President Trump just announced he's meeting Putin in Budapest within 2 weeks to end the Ukraine war. But here's what nobody's talking about. Putin immediately said no to Tomahawk missiles for Ukraine, and that changes everything for American security. President Trump and Vladimir Putin just had a game-changing phone call. 2 hours and 17 minutes. And the result? A second summit in Budapest, Hungary, within the next 2 weeks. This is happening right now, and you need to understand what's at stake for America. Here's what went down on Thursday. Trump spoke with Putin for over 2 hours, calling it productive and announcing that Secretary of State Marco Rubio will lead high-level talks with Russian officials next week. Then Trump and Putin will meet face-to-face in Budapest to try and end what Trump called this inglorious war between Russia and Ukraine. But here's the critical detail everyone's missing. Trump revealed he asked Putin if Russia would mind if America sent Tomahawk missiles to Ukraine. Putin's answer: he didn't like the idea. Not one bit. And that matters more than you think. Why does this matter for America? Let me spell it out. Tomahawk cruise missiles have a range of roughly 1,000 miles. That means they could strike Moscow directly. Ukraine's President Zelenskyy believes these weapons would force Putin to take negotiations seriously. Russia calls it dangerous escalation that would harm U.S.-Russian relations and derail the peace process. Think about that for a second. We're talking about weapons that could reach the Russian capital, supplied by American taxpayers, fired by Ukrainian forces. That's not just another weapon shipment. That's a fundamental shift in the nature of this conflict and America's role in it. Now here's where it gets even more interesting. This call happened just 1 day before Trump meets with Zelenskyy at the White House today, Friday. Zelenskyy is coming to Washington with one primary goal: convince Trump to send those Tomahawk missiles. He's argued that only the language of strength and justice will bring Russia to the negotiating table. Quote, "We can already see that Moscow is rushing to resume dialogue as soon as it hears about Tomahawks," Zelenskyy said on Thursday. But Trump seemed to pump the brakes. He told reporters, "We need Tomahawks for the United States too. We can't deplete for our country." That's a significant statement. The president is weighing American defense needs against Ukrainian requests. That's exactly the kind of America first thinking that resonates with millions of voters who elected him. Let's talk about what happened on the ground while these diplomatic moves unfolded. Russia launched one of its largest aerial assaults on Ukraine overnight, Wednesday into Thursday. Over 300 drones and about 36 missiles targeted Ukrainian infrastructure, including civilian energy facilities. The Ukrainian Air Force reported that most attacks were thwarted, but 37 drones and 14 missiles got through their defenses. People were wounded. Recovery efforts are ongoing. This massive Russian strike sends a clear message. Putin is applying maximum pressure right before these critical diplomatic meetings. He's showing Ukraine and the United States what continued war looks like. And he's demonstrating that Russia still has the capability and willingness to sustain this conflict indefinitely. Should America send Tomahawks to Ukraine? Or would that drag us deeper into a war that's already cost hundreds of thousands of lives? Comment below with yes or no, and tell me why. I want to hear your reasoning on this. Now let's rewind for context. Trump and Putin previously met in Alaska back in August. That summit lasted nearly 3 hours and featured what critics called a red carpet welcome for the Russian leader. But that meeting produced zero tangible progress toward peace. Trump tried to arrange a follow-up summit that would include Zelenskyy, but Putin declined. He refused to sit in the same room with the Ukrainian president. Trump has been increasingly frustrated with Putin over the past few months. He's accused Russia of prolonging the war and said Putin let me down. But this 2-hour phone call on Thursday seems to have shifted Trump's tone again. He's back to talking about great progress and planning another face-to-face meeting. The choice of Budapest as the meeting location is revealing. Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orbán maintains close relationships with both Trump and Putin. Budapest was actually a finalist to host the August summit before officials chose Alaska. Orbán's Hungary has been criticized by other European allies for being too cozy with Moscow, but that relationship might make Hungary the perfect neutral ground for these high-stakes negotiations. If you're finding this analysis valuable, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. We're covering every development in this rapidly evolving situation, and you don't want to miss what happens next. Here's what this means for America in practical terms. First, our defense industrial base. Trump's comment about needing Tomahawks for America highlights a real concern. We've already sent Ukraine billions in military aid. Our stockpiles of certain weapons have been drawn down. If we send advanced cruise missiles to Ukraine, what does that mean for our own readiness if China moves on Taiwan or if we face a crisis elsewhere? Second, escalation risk. Russia has repeatedly warned that supplying long-range missiles capable of hitting Moscow would represent a new level of escalation. The Kremlin said deliveries of Tomahawks would be a dangerous escalation of tensions between Russia and the United States. If Russia retaliates, how does America respond? Are we prepared for that scenario? Third, diplomatic leverage. Trump is playing a complex game here. By considering the Tomahawk request, he's giving Zelenskyy hope and Putin a reason to negotiate. But by not committing immediately, he's keeping his options open and maintaining pressure on both sides. That's negotiation strategy at the highest level. Fourth, congressional dynamics. Senate Majority Leader John Thune announced Thursday that he plans to move forward with bipartisan sanctions legislation targeting Russia. The bill has overwhelming support, but Trump suggested during an Oval Office event that it may not be perfect timing to pass sanctions if diplomatic progress is being made. That sets up a potential clash between the White House and Congress over who controls Russia policy. Let me steelman the opposing view for a moment. Critics argue that Trump is being played by Putin. They say the Alaska summit produced nothing, so why would Budapest be different? They point out that Russia launched 300 drones at Ukraine the same day Trump talked about diplomatic breakthroughs. They argue that withholding Tomahawks sends a message of weakness and emboldens Russian aggression. I hear that argument. It has merit. Putin has proven himself to be a ruthless actor who respects only strength. Every day this war continues, more Ukrainians die defending their homeland against an illegal invasion. But here's my take, and I'm going to be direct with you. America's primary obligation is to Americans, not to Ukraine, not to Europe, not to any other nation. Our tax dollars, our weapons, our diplomatic capital should be spent in ways that advance American interests and keep Americans safe. That's not isolationism. That's common sense. Trump promised to end this war. He said he could do it quickly. It's taken longer than he predicted, and that's been humbling. But at least he's trying diplomacy before escalation. At least he's asking whether sending missiles that can hit Moscow serves American interests. At least he's thinking about our own stockpiles and readiness. Compare that to the previous administration's approach. Endless billions in aid with no clear endgame, no path to peace, just indefinite stalemate and suffering. Trump's approach might not be perfect, but it's attempting to break the cycle. Here's your checklist for what to watch in the next 48 hours. 1. Trump's meeting with Zelenskyy today. Watch for any announcements about Tomahawks or changes in U.S. support. 2. The high-level advisor meetings next week between Marco Rubio and Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov. These talks will set the stage for the Budapest Summit. 3. Congressional action on Russia sanctions. Will Trump successfully convince lawmakers to hold off, or will they pass the bill anyway? 4. Russia's military moves in Ukraine. Will Putin scale back attacks as a gesture of good faith or continue maximum pressure? Trump also mentioned something fascinating during the Oval Office event. He said he asked Putin in a lighthearted way whether Putin would mind if he sent a couple thousand Tomahawks to Ukraine. Putin asked him not to. Think about the dynamic there. Trump is using humor and direct communication to test boundaries and gauge reactions. That's unconventional diplomacy, but it's very much Trump's style. There's another angle here that matters for America: trade. Trump said he and Putin spent a great deal of time talking about trade between Russia and the United States when the war with Ukraine is over. That's forward-looking. That's planning for a post-conflict relationship. Love it or hate it, Trump is thinking about American economic interests in a post-war landscape. The president also highlighted First Lady Melania Trump's work to reunite Ukrainian children with their families. Months of back-channel discussions between Melania and Moscow have apparently made progress on this humanitarian issue. That shows there are multiple levels of engagement happening simultaneously, official and unofficial channels working in PA. Rallel. Should Trump prioritize ending the war quickly, even if that means Ukraine can't get everything at once? Or should America supply every weapon Ukraine requests to help them fight until they win? That's the fundamental question facing this administration right now. Here's what I think happens next. Trump meets with Zelenskyy today and probably doesn't commit to Tomahawks immediately. He'll express support, emphasize America's partnership with Ukraine, but keep his cards close. Next week, Rubio and Lavrov start hammering out preliminary details for a potential ceasefire framework. Then within 2 weeks, Trump and Putin sit down in Budapest. If that meeting produces a ceasefire, or even a path toward one, Trump will claim a major foreign policy victory. If it fails, like Alaska did, pressure on Trump to arm Ukraine more heavily will intensify. The Middle East peace deal Trump just brokered gives him momentum and credibility. He believes that success can translate to progress in Europe. Maybe he's right. The Gaza ceasefire shows Trump can deliver results when he commits to personal diplomacy at the highest level. But Putin is not Hamas. Russia is not Gaza. The stakes are different, the players are different, and the complexity is exponentially greater. Trump is betting that his relationship with Putin, combined with pressure and incentives, can produce what 3 years of conventional diplomacy could not: an end to the war. One more thing to consider. Hungary hosting this summit positions Viktor Orban as a key player in European security. Other European leaders, especially in Poland and the Baltic states, are deeply uncomfortable with this. They see Orban as too sympathetic to Moscow. But Trump is signaling that he values leaders who can actually deliver results and facilitate dialogue, even if they're controversial. This is high-stakes poker with American credibility, Ukrainian lives, European security, and global power dynamics all on the table. Trump is all in on personal diplomacy. The question is whether Putin is genuinely interested in peace or just buying time to consolidate gains and regroup for future offensives. So here's my final question for you, and this is the one that matters most. Is Trump's diplomatic approach the right way to end this war and protect American interests? Or is he making dangerous concessions that will embolden Putin and harm our allies? Drop your answer in the comments. I want real debate, real reasoning, real perspectives. This story is developing fast. We'll keep you updated as Trump meets with Zelenskyy today, and as preparations begin for the Budapest Summit. The next 2 weeks will determine whether Trump's diplomatic gamble pays off or whether we're headed for deeper conflict. Thanks for watching Politics Tribune. Hit that like button if this breakdown helped you understand what's really happening. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss our coverage. And share this video with anyone who needs to understand what's at stake for America right now. I'm out.
If you enjoyed the video, hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss any new videos.